C Sharp is one of the popular programming languages out there that was designed to write application for Windows operating systems. You can use the programming language to write desktop applications, you can write console applications, you can also write web side application, web server applications. In this course, this is actually, guys, this is a course that I have done on Udemy, and I decided to just pull it back and put it on YouTube. And I'm gonna give you just like a quick layout of the course with timestamps that you can go and jump into the sections that you're interested in. And I call this C Sharp by example, learn coding by example with C Sharp. So this course is absolutely for beginners, people who never programmed before. This is good for you guys. And essentially, it's by example because I build up this course using actually a practical project or exam. We're building essentially a Twitter application, right, using C Sharp. Okay, there's no web interfaces or anything. This is almost like a level 1 course. Think about it this way. So if you want to learn C Sharp, this is a good course for you. Good. So guys, this is the outline of the course, C Sharp by example, crash course outline. So we're gonna go through all of these sections, and you should see, if I'm a decent editor, you should see timestamps here in each one of the sections where you can jump to the section you're interested in, and you can watch that particular section. And there are almost more than 24 lectures, and you can watch whatever you're interested in, essentially. Okay, so we're going to talk about the introduction. Why would someone pick C Sharp, right? Again, guys, I wrote this course like maybe 2 years ago, so there might be some information that are outdated. So just take that with a grain of salt. Section 1, we're going to talk about setup. What do you need to get started? You need a Windows machine, obviously. I think you can write C# code on Mac. I didn't go through that with this course, but with Windows, you can definitely do that. I'm going to go through the details of that. Section 2, we're going to talk about building console interface. So how can you write? This is one of the projects that you can do in C#. Uh, where you can essentially build a console application, a command line interface, right? And essentially, here's where the project starts, the Twitter application starts, right? We're going to talk about variables. We're going to talk about all kind of things, right? How do you basically take input from the user? How do you write output and all that thing? Section 3, we're going to be all about file system management. So you're going to write files to disk and you're going to read file from disk. No databases or any of that thing, because remember, this is a very basic course. You can write files and read files. We're going to learn about that. You're going to write the tweets to disk and read it from the disk. Kind of like a very primitive Twitter application, single user mostly. Section 4, we're going to introduce DLL, the dynamic link library, where you can kind of group code into an external library and call that function from an external library, instead to make your project more, I would say, component based, if you will. And we're going to talk about a lot of object-oriented concept in this course as well, right? We're going to talk about inheritance, polymorphism, all that jazz. Section 5, we're going to build a nice interface with this. Like section 5 will be building Windows form interface with that. All right, guys, that's it. Let's just jump into the course.
Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out this course. It means a lot to me. So the first question we want to answer here is why you want to learn C sharp, all right? So why learn programming to begin with? Programming is the art of uh, having the skills to talk to a device, a computer being a computer, a machine, a refrigerator, anything that has compute power. You have the ability to talk to it and tell it to do stuff for you. And that is what inspires me to learn programming. And I hope you have your reasons to learn programming, basically. Right. So going back to our question, why do we want to learn C sharp, right? C sharp is one of the very famous programming languages, especially on top of the Windows platform, right? This was designed by Microsoft on top of the .NET framework. And if you think about it, and if you learn C sharp, you have that skill and you can use it in order to build application for this great marketplace, correct? Right. So and that being said, there are a lot of companies also uses C Sharp and Visual Basic as their main language development platform, so they can build application on top of the Windows platform. All right, so that's why you want to use C Sharp. C Sharp is great language, right? You can use it and build great applications, whether this application could be on the desktop, on the back end, or as a small IoT device. C Sharp is a great programming language to learn. So if you're familiar with my work, my books and my courses, almost all of them, I always teach by example. So what does that mean? So there are two methods of learning. You can learn by learning the individual tools, right? This is a variable, this is an object, this is a hammer, this is a screwdriver, right? That's one way of learning. The other type of learning is actually to build something, to start building something, and in the process learn what tools do you need in order to build that thing. Okay, and that's my always been my motto in building anything and learning anything. Literally, I like to learn by example. Okay, and that brings us to this course, and this course is no different. We're gonna learn by example, and this is what we're gonna learn. All right, guys, so what are we building? We are building for this course, we're learning C Sharp, but in order to learn C Sharp, we need an example, and that example I have picked Twitter. We're actually building Twitter from scratch, okay? Uh, we're gonna learn how to build an application, the console application, the interface, how can we post a new tweet, how can we read tweets, how can we search for tweets, and the persistence mechanism of do we persist it in memory, do we persist it in disk, and all these kind of cool things in this course. So you're gonna learn by example, step by step, as we go through lecture by lecture. We're gonna add concepts and we're gonna add new functionality to the application as we progress, and we're gonna build a great application at the end by the end of this course, right? This is for absolute beginners. Obviously, you don't have to know a lake of code, you don't need to understand C Sharp, you don't need to understand any of that, right? All you need is a Windows machine to get started. If you have a Windows machine, it's blank, right? You can get started right now. Hey guys, so in this lecture, we will learn how to download the Visual Studio Community IDE, which is the tool that you're going to use to build the C Sharp application. The same tool, right, or the interactive development environment can be used to develop in many languages as well. So Visual Basic, C Sharp, F Sharp, C++, JavaScript, and HTML, TypeScript, even Python, right? Okay, but I do recommend if you want to do Python or JavaScript, use the lighter version, which is the Visual Studio Code to do that. With that said, let's just jump into it. Okay, so for this tool, all right, or the editor, okay, this is not actually a simple editor. It actually allows you to compile your code into a binary which you can execute and distribute and then send to people and even put it in a flash drive and execute, right? So this is available for both Mac and Windows, but in this course I am just gonna completely explain it in the Windows, okay, because like C Sharp is more popular for Windows development, kind of. All right, so that's what I recommend doing that. So let's just have Windows, select Windows here, click on download Visual Studio Community. That will basically download and we're gonna go ahead and install. I'm gonna cut through the parts where it is like very obvious things. All right, so just go ahead and click run. Okay, go ahead and yes. And today I'm using Windows 10 for this, but
feel free to use Windows 8. I think 7 is also should be supported with that. So before you get started, you need to set up a few things that can configure the installation. So just hit continue, and this will take like a few more minutes to download. All right, guys. So once that step is done, it will ask you, now you'll be asked to pick what environments you're interested in developing in. All right, so there is a lot, as we discussed before. We are only interested in C# for this course, so don't bother yourself and download all that stuff. You're not gonna use it. All right, so we're interested in the desktop development, so I'm gonna just, because you can do Windows form and C#, that's exactly what we're gonna do, and that's exactly what you need. You don't need anything else, right? Just go ahead and click install. That's gonna take a long time, maybe, because like 3.7 GB. It depends on your internet speed and all that stuff. All right, again, guys, we're using the Visual Studio Community Edition, which is free, completely free. You don't have to pay for it, right? Here's what I gotta download. If you're interested in becoming part of a team, or maybe you are currently in an organization where you have Visual Studio Professional or Enterprise, just feel free to use that, right? So that will give you more access to other tools within that platform. All right, guys, looks like we are done. Once this is done, it will auto launch your Visual Studio 2017 community. All right, so let's take a look. So it will ask you to log in with your Microsoft account. You can skip that. You can do it later. This is just to make you in sync, to get your private Git repository and source safe and all that stuff. Consider getting an account. You don't have to, though. It's an Outlook account. If you have an Outlook account, I think even Hotmail works, right? Any Microsoft account. I'm gonna say just not now, maybe later. We're getting things. Depends on your preference. You want a light environment or dark environment, totally up to you. I'm gonna use dark. Started to like the dark mode more, so I'm gonna go ahead and do start, and we will also adjust the development like font, so you can obviously see the text here while I code. All right, obviously I can always hopefully know how to zoom, right? Oh, look at that. All right, so just like I'm gonna do that, but just in case, I'm gonna make the text more. But essentially, you guys are ready to code. Whenever you get that, you're ready. All right, you can just start coding. I can move to the next section or the next lecture to start building your application today. All right, guys, see you in the next lecture. Hey guys, in this lecture we'll explain the difference between a solution and a project. This is a concept only in this Visual Studio IDE, integrated development environment. Alright, so in a nutshell, a solution is a collection of projects, okay? So this is, think of it like you're building you're a team of a lot of developers, and you guys want to build multiple pieces of your application. So each one will work on a project, but all of you will put the project in a single solution. So that's one way to do it. So let's go ahead and just run Visual Studio 2017. You can run it this way or just search for it, Visual Studio. All right, so if I go ahead and create like a new project, you would get this concept of what different types of project that you can create, and this is pretty cool, right? So there are different languages a project can be. A project can be a single language. You cannot mix match project, right? So the project could be like a C# console application. We can explain all that, don't worry about it. All right, class library, a Windows form, right? And or a Visual Basic project, right? But all of them can, if you want to, be in the same solution. And in this course, we're gonna do exactly that. We're gonna build one solution, okay? And we're gonna start building different projects and add it to this solution. And that's the beauty of essentially reusing your code, where you can build the code, do something with it, and just like have some other people contribute to your project and so on. All right, guys. So that's essentially the difference. Like, let me actually just create a simple project. So I'm gonna call this console application console project, but the solution name I'm gonna call it my team solution. Okay. So if I do that, make sure to always check that create directory for solution. All right. So when you do that, you'll get the solutions created and the project created. In this case, I created a C# console application. All right. All right, guys. So once your project is created, you'll see this exactly, right? So you'll see a project and you see the solution. You can still rename that if you want to. But the beauty of this, you can start now right-clicking on this and you can add either an existing project or a new project. So let's go ahead and just show you that I can add a project of a different, completely different programming language. Let's say a form project. Let's say my form project. All right. And then you can start building multiple projects, right? So although this is a VB project, Visual Basic, this is C#, I was able to add those two projects in my solution, and then you can choose to build all that. Don't worry about it, guys. I'm going to explain all about it, but that's the essential concept of a difference between a solution and a project, if you saw that in your system, right? So just like to understand what's the difference between the two. All right, guys, we're gonna head to the next lecture where we actually build a real life project and a solution and start building and adding code to it. All right, guys, see you in the next lecture. Bye. All right, guys, we are ready to build our Twitter application, right? So as we discussed before, right? So this course, we're gonna build something. We're gonna build this Twitter application. We try to attempt to build this Twitter application, and in the process, we're gonna learn the tools and the different programming concept when we need it, and we'll start applying it to the application. And instead the other way around, where you learn concepts and tools and then try to kind of Lego break it and build something out of it, right? I always believe that we should build always an example. All right, so that's exactly what we're going to build, right? So we're going to build a Twitter console application. All right, so this is an application where you can actually write tweets and read tweets and do some cool stuff with that. All right, guys, let's start with that. All right, so we're gonna head to open our Visual Studio Code and head to File, and then New, then you'll hit Project. Okay, and once you click Project, we will make sure to go to Visual C#. That's what we're coding against, right? That's our programming language for this course. And click on C# and then click on Console Application. Okay. For the name of the project, as we explained before, there are two things. There are the name of the project and the solution. If you create a new project, you always are asked for the name of the solution as well. So the solution is a collection of projects, okay? And that's our solution. Let's start with the solution name. So the solution name will be, I'm gonna call this C# Twitter, let's call this project, right? That's kind of confusing to call this project. So it's like a Twitter application, okay? Makes sense? That's the whole thing. But this particular project is called Twitter console, okay? Makes sense, guys? Let's go ahead and we have the name of the project as Twitter console, and the C# Twitter application is the entire solution. And then make sure to check this box, create directory or solution, because we want the whole thing to fit in a directory. Okay, and then we're ready. Go ahead, click, and that will create our console application. Essentially, now we're gonna go ahead and save it. We did not specify where do you want to put that solution, but I guess whatever we put it is good, I think, right? So where did we put that solution? It was created in under C, user, source, repos, and then there's a project there. Obviously, you can always change the location of where you want to put your code. Okay, guys, just like that, we are ready to start coding. Let's head to the next lecture. Let's go ahead and save first our project. Obviously, we didn't do anything, but saving is good, right? So for this section, we'll start building out this application. We're gonna explain everything you see on the screen here, guys. So don't get intimidated by the lot of coding here. It's just like a very basic things, right? Whenever we need something, we're gonna build it. All right, guys. See you in the next lecture. Bye. Hey guys, we are ready to write our first code. All right, so if you accidentally close the project, don't worry, we can always open it again. So go ahead and just look for Visual Studio 2017. Then once you open that, you should see it on the recent, but don't worry if you don't. You go ahead and just go open solution and then look for it under your the folder that you saved it in. All right, usually it's gonna be in the location there. So just go ahead and open the solution. You always want to open the solution, guys. Don't open the project alone, because opening the solution will open all its project as well. Okay, in this lecture we're gonna write the first code that will allow us to view a tweet. So let's assume we have a bunch of tweets, all right, and we're gonna view them. Okay, for this lecture we have one single tweet and we just want to show it on the screen, all right, on the console application here, which is this black thing that you see in a command prompt here, right? So that's the console essentially. All right, so let's start. All right, so we will start by writing all our code in this little main we're gonna call it method. Okay, so all your code goes between these two braces. Okay, so this is the start and this is the end, and your code will start here. And a tweet is a collection of characters, correct? All right, and this collection of characters is called a string. So, and that string, you can declare it and save it into what we call a variable. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and declare a variable, call it tweet. Okay, and then I'm gonna save in that tweet a value of, let's say, hey, this is my first tweet. Okay, C#, when you write code, you have to end that code with a semicolon. There are cases that you do not have to, but we're going to explain that. But just like that, when you write what the first line of code that you wrote is, we'll take that as our tweet and then take that collection of characters, the letter H, E, comma, space, and all that stuff, which we call system.string, and store it in this handler, what we call a variable, a local variable, and we're gonna persist that result in this variable. And this is an in-memory thing. So this will happen as long as the application is running. This is gonna be storing this variable. Once the application is destroyed or closed, this is all gonna go recycled to the operating system. Okay, so by doing that, you notice that there's like a little green dash line here saying that, hey, you declared a variable, but you assigned it a value, but you never used it. Okay, don't worry, Visual Studio Code, we're gonna use it just fine now in a minute. So what we're gonna write here is the second line of code is dot, has to be capital, right? Because C# is a case sensitive language. So when you do console the right line, and you do a space, has to be capital W, capital L, and then you open parentheses and you say, what do you want to write in the console? Okay, so by doing that, I want to write my tweet that I just wrote, and just like we explained, C# have to end with a semicolon. All right, so now we're ready to build and run our application, and to do that we will simply hit this start button. Okay, this will run in debug mode to tell us if we made a mistake or we did something wrong. Okay, so by running that, it will run the application, and if you notice, the application immediately closes. We didn't get to see our work. Okay, and the reason is because we didn't tell the application to stop, all right, or to pause. To do that, we need another line of code called read line. Okay, and what that does is it will ask the user, it will ask us to input something. So it waits for us to input something before it closes. Okay, once the code reaches here, the application is done and it will be closing. Okay, so if we add a semicolon here and then we run the application, we notice that I can see, hey, this is my first tweet. So we just viewed our tweet here that is already existing. Think of it like, oh, it's already there and I'm gonna view it. We're gonna build more cool stuff, guys, right? All right, and then just by closing it this way, or I hit enter, the application is done. So let me show you a little bit of debugging. If I clicked here now, and then this will create a breaking point which will allow us to step into the code line by line and will allow us to see what is going on, and this is very powerful. So let's go ahead and just step in the line and then sees, okay, the code is telling you, hey, by the way, I'm executing this code. They highlighted yellow lines, they say I'm executing this one. And to move on, you essentially just say step into, just like go to the next one. Okay, and the next line is go and take that variable and write it to the screen. So it's cool that if you hover over it, you can actually see the value of the variable, right? Just go ahead and do that, and then that will obviously print that. And then if you do this, it will sit there and wait unless we type something. Once we type something and hit enter, this will go to the next line, which is this, and if I do this, the application will be closed. All right, guys, so this was a very simple way of writing and viewing the tweet that we just wrote. Okay, guys, we're gonna move to the next lecture where we do more, slightly more interesting stuff. Stay tuned. Hey guys, so far what we did is we took an existing text and we viewed it as a tweet, right? So we viewed a tweet from the application, but we didn't get to write our own tweet and store it there. So in this lecture, we're gonna learn how to post a tweet to the application and store it in memory. Okay guys, let's start with that. Okay, so there is a single variable here that calls tweet, and there is this text. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and remove that. Okay, so I'm gonna remove that whole entire thing, and instead I'm gonna say string tweet. I'm gonna declare a variable called tweet, which is the same thing, but instead of having a string in the application, I am going to use console. You have already learned this, guys, called read line. So read line, I lied. It does two things. It doesn't only allow you just to write on the test, it actually takes your input. And guess what? It takes your input, and the highlighted part becomes that string that we talked about, right? And then gets persisted into this tweet. I shouldn't use the word persisted, but yeah, stored in this variable that is called tweet. And it's like, think of this as like a box that contains value that is just floating in your computer memory until the application is closed. Okay, and then once the application is closed, that variable is gone. Okay, so this will take this tweet, all right, and then we'll store it in the tweet variable, and then we'll write it back to us, and then it will again ask us to write something, but we're not gonna do anything with it. We're just like gonna throw it out. Whatever we ask us, this is just to stop the application from closing. Let's go ahead and start and see what will happen. So if you notice this time, if I run the application, it will just keep linking, right? It will just like it's waiting for us. It's kind of weird, but it's actually doing something. It's waiting for you. So it's like, hey, this is Hussein, my second tweet actually, and then dot, and then you hit enter, and then you get the exact same text back, which is the tweet, right? So you just essentially posted the tweet, and then we're still waiting, and then when you hit OK, our application is done. So we need some other kind of labels that tells you what's going on, right? So before we ask the user, ask us to put that tweet, we can write something, right? We can ask him to write, hey, enter tweet to post. Then you can do this. And then, so if you notice, this time I didn't use a variable. Nothing's stopping you from doing that. You can do it if you want. You can put a variable called enter tweet to post and the space, and then you can do that. And let's actually do that, right? See, enter tweet to post, and then the read line will be waiting for you to enter. So this makes more sense now, right? Okay. Oh, you want me to enter a tweet? Okay, I'll like this. This is my tweet, and then do that. Okay, there you go. We can now also do more cool things like, hey, how about after writing the tweet, say console.writeLine tweet posted successfully, and then we can write console.write your tweet is. I am going to use, if you notice that the first one I used accidentally was write, not write line. So the only difference is write will not write a line after it. It will not, it's like as if you're writing in Notepad, right? Let's go to Notepad and show you. So if you like, if you're writing something here, right? So it's like enter tweet to post. If I did write line, then it will physically put a line there. So the next text will go after that. If you just say write, it will not write a new line. And sometimes you want to do that, sometimes you don't. So let's do write here, because I want to show your tweet is, and then we'll just print the tweet after that immediately. All right, let's see what will happen when I run this code now. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and just zoom in for you guys a little bit here. Hussein Nasser tweet, so we get prompted, and then I'm gonna write my tweet, and it says tweet posted successfully, and then your tweet is Hussein Nasser Ed1, or whatever you write. All right, guys, I'm gonna stop here, and feel free to play with this application. Feel free to play with the code, and I'm gonna see you in the next lecture where we're gonna do more cooler stuff. See you there. Hey guys, in this lecture we will show how to display the length of this tweet, and this is for a very good reason. Remember guys, a tweet can only be 140 characters. We're gonna come to that in a later lecture, but for now we just want to display that. How can we know the length of a tweet? That's very, very, very simple and very good question as well. All right, so a tweet variable here, and especially if it's a string, there is a property, all right, in this string that you can do called tweet.length. And guess what it gives you? It gives you the length, the number of characters. You can zoom that. The number of characters in the current string object, right? So it actually tells us the length of that string. Okay? So how can we do that? There are multiple ways. Let's do that. Console.writeLine. I just write line. Yeah. Write your tweet length is,
or just like, and your tweet length is, and we can do that. Then we close that. Oh, don't forget your semicolon, guys. Whenever you see that red, that means something is wrong. Then we do console.write line, and then we do tweet.length. Right? And it has to be capital. All right, guys, let's try that. See if it works. Okay. My tweet is Hussein Nasser is cool. Can't believe it. Took myself. All right, this is his tweet. Okay. Your tweet is Hussein Nasser is cool. This is his tweet. Your tweet length is 41. All right. Let's try something else. You guys rock. It's 14 characters. All right. Nice. What I want to do here is actually, you started to know like the code is starting to become really difficult to read, isn't it? Right. So what we're gonna do is show you a cool tool here, right? Only when you need it. When it start things getting wrong, again, if this is comfortable for you, continue using it. You don't have to use the new things that I'm gonna give you, right? You don't have at all. Okay. Whatever works for you works. All right, guys. So what I'm gonna tell you here is just I'm gonna remove all this code now, okay, and I'm gonna remove all this code. I'm gonna say console.write line. I'm gonna do it in one line. Try at least, okay. And the way I would do it is your tweet is, and then I'm gonna use this special character called curly braces, and I'm gonna give it a number 0. Okay, this is the first variable. Okay, and the next is just a bunch of strings that we and characters that we're gonna print on the screen, and comma, and you don't have to put the comma, it's just optional. And its length is, guess what? Variable number 1. Okay, what does that mean though? Okay, it means that after you finish your string, you put a comma there, and this console.write will take the list of variables consequently. Okay, so the first variable, which is number 0, goes to the tweet, right? I want the tweet to go there. And the second variable, which is number 1, I want the tweet dot length, the length of the tweet. And obviously, I need to just put a semicolon there, right? So if this becomes really hard to read, you can do this. I think, yeah, it doesn't complain, right? Does it? It doesn't complain. That's good. I think you can even do that. All right, I think this is just slightly more readable, if you will, right? So just go ahead and start, and you should get, okay, enter your tweet to post. Hi, this is my 3rd tweet. Okay. Your tweet is, hi, this is my 3rd tweet, and its length is 27, okay? So, looks cool, right? We can, if we will, to identify the tweet, you can just add it between single quotes, right? So let's try it again. This is my 3rd tweet. You know what? That's what I mean, right? Your tweet is now between the single quote and its length is 24. Makes sense, guys? All right, see you in the next lecture with more cooler stuff. Hello, guys. In this lecture, we will learn how to actually post and view multiple tweets. And the first thought that might occur to you is like, well, just use multiple variables, and that's exactly what we're gonna do, right? So let's do that. Okay, for simplicity, let's say I'm gonna create 5 tweets, or for 4 tweets. Okay, so I'm gonna say tweet number 1, enter tweet number 1. Okay, enter tweet number 1. All right, and then we read tweet number 1, and then maybe just copy and paste. Copy and paste. Copy and paste. Enter tweet number 2. It's complaining because the variable already exists. Obviously, this is number 2, tweet number 2, tweet number 3, tweet number 3, and tweet number 4. So we have successfully read from the user 4 tweets. Now we need to turn around and write them, okay? So let's get tweets posted successfully, all right?
And then just for fun, I'm gonna add another line of code. Okay, this is how you do just an empty line. Okay, and I'm gonna remove that. We don't need it right now. Okay, so now how do I actually print those tweets? Well, sounds simple, right? Console.writeLine, your tweets are book, like that. Just need write actually. Then guess what? Console.writeLine, tweet one. There are multiple ways of doing this, right, guys? So you can do it this way. Tweet 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you can start noticing something that is getting repetitive, and that is the point of this lecture. Okay, let's go ahead and run this. So let's go. Tweet number 1. This is my first tweet. This is my second tweet. This is my third tweet. And I can't write. This is my fourth tweet. And let's just for fun zoom in a little bit here. Okay, tweet posted successfully. Your tweets are: this is my first tweet, this is my second tweet, this is my third tweet, this is my fourth. And you know, guys, like why this happened. That's easy, because we didn't do a new line. I mean, this is simple. If we do like this is if you did this as a new line, then well, they will print all of them. Okay, there is a better way of doing this, and this will moves us to the topic. This is moves us to the tool that we need. There's a tool that we actually need here to remove ugly code like that, repetitive code essentially, right? You know, repetitive code is fine. Again, it's okay, but it can become really cumbersome if you start writing a lot of application. You don't want code that repeats itself, right? Because if you want to change something, you have to go and change it in all places, right? You want things to be simple, okay? And that's what we're gonna do here, okay? So let's start introducing arrays. That's the first tool we're gonna need, okay? So I'm gonna create an array of string. An array, think of it, it's like a consecutive chain, a big chain of the same variable type. Okay, and that's in C#, and different languages could be different, but it's actually essentially it's like a sequence of things. It has an index, right? And then once it has this index, each index, like the index position number 0, have this variable. Position number 2 have this variable. Okay. All right, guys. So in this lecture, we're gonna describe how to build an array. Okay, and to build an array, there are many ways to build an array. Think of an array as like it's a collection, a chain of variables set consequently together. That's what an array is. And the beauty of an array is because of this chain, it allows us to actually this pattern would allow us to do really cool things that we're going to explain in the coming minute or so. All right, so let's go ahead and declare an array. This is how you declare an array. It's very simple. Okay. You declare you start with the type of this array. What content? What's the type of this array? And you can say, listen, I want an array of string because there are a bunch of tweets, right? So this is an array of string. Then I'm gonna call it tweets, and then you're gonna initialize that array. You have to do that. What content, what will be in the array, what's the size of the array? You have to put this in C#. In JavaScript, Python, you don't really have to do that, but in C# you have to do that. Okay, so to do that, we do actually new string, and then you just put the number. Okay, and in this case it's 4. Okay, then you put a semicolon. Okay, so now I created an array, an empty array of 4 slots, 4 variables. So what will this give me? So now if I start replacing the code, right, our variables with the individual arrays, this is what I'm gonna get, right? We don't need to declare them anymore, so we get do tweet sub 0, which is the first element, the first array, the first variable of the array. Okay, use that. And then the second one will be, guess what? Sub 1, that's correct. And then the third one will be sub 2 and sub 3 And that's it. So now we filled those. So if you think about this is an array of 4, but the maximum element is 3. So don't get this confuses you, right? Because arrays always start from 0 in programming. Okay, so that will essentially store the variables in tweet 0, 1, 2, 3. All right, and then we're going to turn around and print those tweets sub 0, tweets sub 1, and tweets sub 2, and then tweets sub 3. And then now people are going to have questions, right? It's like, what did you actually did? It's like you didn't do anything. You just like made it actually harder. Because like you still use the variable, might as well just use the variable. Why did you introduce this array? Just a second, we're gonna get to it, guys. We're gonna get to it. All right, let's make sure this works first. Okay, if I run this and I say, hey, my first tweet, my second tweet, my third tweet, my fourth last tweet. Okay, and looks like it's working. All right, it is working. But this is not how we use arrays. The reason we introduce arrays is to get rid of most of this code. And that brings us to the next tool that we need to make our code looks better, all right? And that tool is loops. But that will be in the next episode. Stay tuned. Hey guys, so in the previous lecture we have introduced arrays and we learned about arrays, and part 2 of that lecture, because it's a very long lecture so we had to split in two. In this lecture we're going to introduce loops and how we can combine loops and array to build really cool things and really concise and efficient programming. So we're going to introduce loops. Loops is a very interesting programming concept. It's mandatory in each programming. You gotta do loops, right? Because if you see things that are repetitive like that, it's repeating, right? You want to use a loop and change something in this loop that will kind of iterate on that code over and over again. Okay, and to do that, we're gonna replace all this code, if you notice, right? Because all of this code is exactly the same. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna comment out all this code, and commenting out is actually a pretty cool thing as well. And this is in order to say, hey, I want the code, but I don't want to delete it. I want to just comment it out, so I can just the compiler in our case will ignore it, but it's there for us. Does that make sense, guys? Right? This is like you can write things like, oh, this is my array. You can type pretty much anything you want and the compiler will ignore it, so it won't actually check it. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is actually do an array. So a loop. So we're gonna do a for loop for integer, because integer is a number. Okay, I'm gonna start a variable, an integer, from 0, okay, while I is less than the tweets dot length. Remember we did that before, right? But always for a string. Array has the same property called length, okay, which is essentially 4, right? You might ask us like, okay, why didn't you just type 4? It's better to not repeat things that is obvious. If you know it's 4, then use that same variable, because if you change it, it will just use the latest value. You do without you having to change the code every time. Does that make sense, guys? So if I less than, while I is less than 4, go ahead and do I++. So I++ means literally increase I by 1, okay? And then let's open a braces here, including indicating this is our code. Remember, this is exactly like this, braces. Braces means that this is my braces of code, and I'm gonna execute this loop in this essentially between these braces. Okay, I'm gonna copy just this part and I paste it here. What that means is loop start with 0, okay, check the second step is check, is 0 less than 4? Yeah, 0 is less than 4. What do you want me to do? Okay, if it's true, continue and do this code. Okay, let's not look at the code right now, but now move to the next. And then once you execute the code, this will actually not terminate, it will go back and execute this. Okay, which will increase the I by 1, which makes it 1. And then you check again. All right, is 1 less than 4? Yes. Execute the code, reach here, and then go here again, which increments the I by 1, which makes it 2. 2 is still less than 4. Continue executing. 3, still less than 4. Execute. 4 less than 4? No. So once this condition is broken, go ahead and exit. And that's when we know that loop is broken. Okay. With that said, now that I have I, okay, I can, what is the value that keep changes with I? Okay, 0 here should be I, isn't it? Right? Because tweet sub 0, then tweet sub 1, then tweet sub 1, 2, until it reaches 3, and that will be done. Okay, and let's keep this 1 for now, so we don't get confused. Okay, and then this code will be ignored. Yeah, I can actually safely just remove it. I don't really care. And let's keep this as well. Okay, still we can improve this better. Okay, and you might actually already know how to do that. Let's go do that. My first tweet, second tweet, third tweet, last tweet. If you notice, it still says 1 though, right? But if I do that, now it works, right? My first tweet, my second tweet, it actually printed all of them, and with less lines of code, right? Now it's just like it's more readable. It's a loop, right? Now, how do I remove this 1 and I replace it with an actual tweet number blah, right? Tweet number, get what? 0. Remember, we did that in the previous lecture. And the parameter is actually I. Okay, let's see what will happen. If I run it again, I'm gonna get my first tweet. Have you noticed it says number 0? Okay, but that makes sense, right? Because it's the first 0. And then second tweet, third tweet, fourth. And that works. 0, 1, 2, 3. Obviously, humans don't deal with zeros, right? The first one. So how do you start from 1 as just displaying to the user? You guessed it. Just add +1. And that does the trick, right? Now, if you notice, it will start from 1. All right? Makes sense, guys? All right, so let's go and finish the last thing, which is this tweet. I'm going to replace this 4 lines with a loop. How do we do it? We can still reuse the I variable there. Okay, so while I is less than tweets dot length I plus plus, and I'm going to do console the right line. Okay, your tweet is, or just like, we can just like your tweet number, which would be fancier, right, is 1. We did all that stuff, right, guys? So this will be I plus 1, and this will be tweet sub I. That makes sense, guys? Right? And let's just add this here so it's more readable. Okay, so the first variable will go to this, and the second one will take the ith element of the tweet. Okay, and that will basically start incrementing 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's the cool part of this, right? I'm gonna start looping through this. Okay, let's test our code. Tweet my first, my second, my third, fourth, last. Okay, And looks like it's working, guys. All right, so we just introduced arrays, we do introduce loops in the context of actually building an application, right? So in that process, we're gonna build, in the next lecture, we're gonna build more and more coolish stuff. I think with these are the most, I would say, the hardest thing to learn. And once you give these, you're good to go. You're good to go, and it's just like you're ready to build applications, cool applications, guys. All right, I'm gonna see you in the next one, guys. Stay awesome. Hey guys, in this lecture, we will learn the very important tool that you're going to use in your entire programming and software engineering career. We're going to learn about the condition statement, all right, and the if statement. Okay, so we're going to learn it in the context of our application that we're building, which is Twitter, okay? So as you all know, with Twitter, there is a very important condition that you cannot write a tweet that is longer than 140 characters, correct? And we're gonna use that same condition to actually restrict tweets that are longer than 140 and only allow tweets that are 140 characters or less. Let's get to it. Okay, so there are many ways to do this here. Okay, we can restrict it while reading it from the user, because this is where we're writing the tweets, right? We can do it this way, or we can also, while displaying it, hiding that tweets that are longer than 140 characters. So for simplicity, we're gonna do the former, the latter one. Okay. So while looping and displaying these tweets, I want to put a condition here inside this loop. Okay. If the tweet is greater than 140 characters, I'm not gonna display it. Okay. So let's get to it. Okay. The first thing I want to do is, that's the current tweet that we're currently iterating, correct? So what I want to do is I'm gonna add an if statement, and the if statement always are followed by parentheses, and inside the parentheses is the logic that you want to check, the condition, and then you ask yourself a question: if this is true, then do this, else do something else. So let's get to it. So it's very simple, right? If the tweet that I'm currently looping against is greater than 140 characters, then I do not want to print that. Or maybe I'm gonna print something like that, right? Write line, tweet is longer than 140 characters. All right? And then we follow it up with a semicolon. Cool? If you we have missed a very important thing. A tweet by itself is a string, it's a text, right? So we need something that is a number. What tells us what's the length of a tweet? Remember, it's dot length, right? So that was the error that we got earlier. Okay, if the tweet is longer than 140, I'm gonna print that. Else, I want to print this instead. Okay, and this tells me that this if statement will get executed. If that's true, we're gonna do that, else I'm gonna do that. All right, so let's check that. How about that, guys? And then I am going to put a very long tweet here. I think this is longer than 140, right? And then I'm gonna put something L4 and 4. And if you noticed, the first tweet, we got an error. Tweet is longer than 140 characters, but the rest of them, we printed them nicely. With this powerful tool, we are ready to move to the next lectures and use it all over. We're gonna build a menu, and then hopefully in the future lectures, we're gonna build an interface. This is a very important tool, guys. We're gonna use it a lot. All right, see you in the next lecture, guys. Hey guys, in this lecture we will learn how to build an interface for our Twitter little application that we have built so far. Okay, and this interface is like, this is a little unusual, right? You don't really see such interface here, but this is just for the sake of the example here. Okay, so the interface will be some sort of a menu, right, where you will prompt it with a console application, and you'll pick a number. 1 means post a new tweet. 2, essentially view all existing tweets. Very simple. And 3 will be exit the application. All right, so to do that, I want to start from scratch, and I'm gonna go ahead and just delete all this code. Or maybe, yeah, let's just go ahead and comment out all this code. And to comment out all the code, you can do this in C#. You can do this, then you close it out by doing that. So you still have the code, but it no longer executes. So if you do this, the application will immediately just start the code and then will immediately close it. So yeah, as you saw, right? So what I want to do is I want to introduce the main menu, and to do the main menu, it's very really simple, right? All we have to do is just really write literally main menu. Now we can be fancy like that, right? We can add a few dashes indicating that this is the main menu. And what I want to do is I want to give users options, right? So I'm going to add a brand new line, and then let's say option number 1, view all tweets. Okay, and console.writeLine. Option number 2 will be post to new tweet. How about that? Okay, don't really need a dot, do we? Okay, and console writeLine. Option number 3, exit. Okay, if you type, that means if you type 1, okay, we're gonna view all the tweets. 2, we're gonna post a new tweet. And 3, exit the application. Okay, so as you can see, there is the condition that we have here: if then, if then, if then. We're gonna do something like that. Okay, so obviously after we get that, we need to ask the user enter your choice, right? And that will be read line. Okay, go ahead and just read the value of what the user choice will be, right? And that choice will be literally, we're gonna store it in a choice variable called choice. Sounds good? Okay, so now I will simply, for simplicity, I will just print back that choice. Okay, you entered choice. Sounds good? Sounds good, guys? And that's it. Obviously, don't forget at the end of application, because we just want to see the the actual menu before it closes. So just go ahead and looks good. View all tweet number 1, post new tweet number 2 and 3. So 1, you entered 1, and then the application will exit. But what I don't want to do here is I don't want this to exit, right? I want this to be always looping. This menu is always looping until the user actually clicked 3, entered 3 in order to exit the application. Okay, in order to do that, we will need to introduce a new kind of loop, right? Something that we actually never introduced before, and this is called the do while. So do is a loop that is introduced, right? It's a loop that has optionally, if you want, this curly braces. That means all the code inside it will immediately execute, right? So let's add them. And then after that, we're gonna do a while. And that while is the actual condition. Okay, so the first time we go through this loop, we're gonna execute all that. We're gonna read, ask the user for a choice, okay, and we will loop as long as the choice is not equal 3. Make sense? That's what we want to do, okay? And if you notice, there's a little problem here. It says, choice does not exist in the current context. We're going to explain more about it, but the solution to this is because that loop doesn't understand what this variable is. So we needed to move this up before the do so it actually understand it, okay? And all we do is we don't need to define it anymore. We just use that variable. These are called scope. We're going to talk about scope hopefully in the coming lectures. All right. So now we got all that, and obviously don't forget our semicolon, and we're good to go. Let's try that. So now if I enter 1, I will get back to the loop, right? If I enter 2, if I enter literally anything actually, I will always go back and print these options. If you notice, until I print 3, at that time, we actually exit the application. All right. So that is what I wanted to do today. All right. Just showing you the menus, showing you the if statements. We're gonna do more and more if statements here in the coming lecture. All right, so we're gonna just break this lecture into 2 parts. So the menu, we introduce a new loop, all right, and we just showing you like how can we have a menu that always loops until the user decide to exit the application. All right, guys, stay awesome. Gonna see you in the next lecture. Hey guys, now that we've built the basic backbone main menu application and the user interface, we need to plug in the rest of the code where we can view the tweets and post new tweets, which we did already, right guys? But this is within the context of this main menu. So let's just get into it. So obviously, to view all the tweets, we need obviously an array, correct? So we'll build an array of tweets. Let's call tweets equal new string, and let's say I'm gonna have a maximum of 10 tweets, okay? Cool. And then since we'll be adding tweets one by one, we need a tweet counter, correct? So let's just do that. I'm going to declare an integer value. So I think this is the first time we introduce a new variable type, which is number. Number is it's different than a string. String is where you put characters and maximum match characters and letters and numbers as well. But actual integer can be stored numbers in them. So we can put like tweet counter, okay, and equals 0. And started from 0, right? I don't have any tweets so far. So what I want to do here is get a choice, and if the choice is equal 1, yeah, let's start with 1. Okay, if the choice is 1, I want to print all the tweets. Remember how to print all the tweets, guys? So remember, this is how we basically do. Forgot the codes there. Okay, if choice equal 1, then we will need to print all the code, and we did that work before, right? And that's the code. And so I'm just gonna go ahead and take that code and paste it there. Okay, so we'll loop, and we can actually just write it down. It's easier. So for integer I equals 0, while I is less than tweets dot length I plus plus, just go ahead and loop through every single one of them, and then just say console dot write line, for example, tweet number 0 is, we don't need is, do we? Just like that. And then I want to print the tweet here, which is 1, parameter number 1, and that will be tweet number I, okay, which is I plus 1, 1, and obviously tweets of I. Sounds good. This will print everything, and If you have noticed, I have used this time, I use curly braces, and the reason is because I'm writing multiple line of code. All right, I still can do this without the curly braces, but I'm gonna just for simplicity, I'm gonna use them. Okay, let's go ahead and do choice equal to, I want to post, all right, a new tweet. And to post a new tweet is essentially just literally take the ask the user for the tweet, obviously, right? Console.writeLine, enter your tweet, right? Then the user will enter their tweet. We don't need a line here. Let's just use write. That will be string tweet equal this, and obviously we need to check, right, guys? Oh, that's wrong. We write that and then we ask the user for the tweet. Remember, console.readLine. That will ask us for to get the tweet, and then if the tweet dot length is greater than 140, I don't want something that's greater than 140. I want to just continue the loop, ignore everything else, and that to do that, I want to jump everything and go to the next loop. And to do that, you will literally type the word continue. Okay, so that means I don't want to persist this new tweet. It is not good. So I just want to continue, but I need to tell the user that something is wrong, right? So let's do console.writeLine. Tweet is longer than 140 characters, and obviously this should go in the right. Should go in that thing. Just like that, we have a tweet. Now we need, if we reach here, if the code reaches this, that means the tweet is good. Let's go ahead and store it. And to store the tweet, all we have to do is just basically do tweets sub Twitter tweet counter plus plus equal the tweet, which is tweet. Sounds good? So what does this mean? What is going on here? All right. So tweet sub I, remember we put a number here, essentially sub 0, all right, sub 1, sub 2, and so on, right? So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna put Twitter counter, which is essentially the first time it is 0, remember? But I also want to increment it after I put the value there. So that will be essentially replaced with tweet sub 0, and then it will increment that Twitter value by 1. So now the current tweet counter is actually 1, right? Make sense? There is a mistake that we have made here, guys. Now think about it, right? So we need to, when we view the tweets, we can't really loop through the length of the array because it could be empty. So what we need to loop through is actually the tweet counter, but I'm gonna leave that mistake so in order to show you what's going on there. Okay, let's go ahead and run an application. Let's view all the tweets. See, it's viewing every single thing, right? It's looping through the whole thing, which is wrong, right? Because there is no tweets. Let's add a new tweet. Okay, this is my first tweet. Okay, and I just added a tweet. Now if I do this, it will now show that tweet, right? So how to fix that? How do I show only the tweets that I actually posted instead of the entire array, which is 10, right? I don't want that. Okay, it's a very simple fix. Replace this with the actual counter that we are maintaining. All right, guys? So don't worry, guys. I'm gonna put this code in the description of this lecture so you can find it as a resource. All right, let's try that now. So now if I view 1, there is nothing. Post, hi, view. Now we can see the tweet. Let's add another tweet, right? And Nasser is tweeting. Okay, and then view them, and then you can see tweet number 1, hi, tweet number 2, tweeting, and then let's type something that is more than 140 character. Hopefully this is more than 140. And we get yelled at. Did we get yelled at? Did we get yelled at? Huh. Looks like this was less than 240. Okay, let's do that. We'll do all this characters. This gotta be better than 140. Okay, there you go. Tweet is longer than 140. So if you view, you should not come back. Cool. All right, guys. Slightly longer lecture, but we got everything that we need, I think. All right. So we have all the basics going on. All right. See you in the next lecture, guys. He's awesome. All right, guys, now that we have our console application ready, we need to do a little trimming in our code. We need to, it's very, one of the best practices to pull code that is repetitive and you know that you're going to use into pieces of portions of code. We call them classes. Okay, classes are very, very useful in C# and a lot of other programming languages as well, where you can put certain pieces of code that you know you're going to use later into a place and you can call them again and again and again instead of copying and pasting code all over again. So let's go ahead and create a new class here, and I'm going to call this class because this class is going to manage our tweets. I'm going to call it let's call it tweet manager. All right, so go ahead and create that class. It's a brand new class. All right, so all we have to do here is now we need obviously an array. So I'm gonna create a new string tweets array, and then nothing changes. This is the exact same one. Let's say 10 arrays. Okay, we created our arrays. Now we need our counter, right? So public integer tweet counter equals 0. Okay, nothing fancy so far. And we need our methods now. Our methods will be the methods that we can enter the class with, right? And these are, to manage a tweet, we need obviously to post a new tweet, right? Which takes a tweet as a string. And what this returns is, I want this to return a string, okay? Always a method optionally takes arguments that you can do stuff with them and returns also optionally data types, certain variables. And in our case here, I want to do something like that, right? If the tweet dot length is greater than 140, I want to return a new string saying, hey, tweets is longer than 140 characters, right? Yep. And we can indicate that this is an error, for example, like that, so the user can actually see that. Okay. Another thing we can check for is, have we exceeded the maximum number of tweets, right? Because we didn't check for that before. So let's go ahead and do that. If the tweet counter is greater than tweets.length, greater than or equal even, really. If we reach the maximum number of tweets, we also want to return an error, max tweets reached. Cool. So we're just like isolating the code in this little place. All right. And if all these satisfied, if this is satisfied, if that's okay, we will move on. If that's okay, we'll move on. And what we're going to do here is literally just do tweets sub tweet counter equal the tweet that we just received. And then we can return now tweet posted successfully. How about that, guys? Sounds good? All right, so that's post tweet. How about returning the tweets? All right, returning the tweets, the return type of the tweets will be an array, obviously, and I'm gonna call it get tweets. And it doesn't really take anything, does it? Because we don't really want to take anything. Just like do that and literally just do return tweets.
That's simple enough, right? Another piece that we need to expose to the outside world, because this class is like, think of it like it's an isolated thing. Nobody actually can see it except whoever you want to see, right? So what we want to do is actually also create another method called integer tweet counter, right? And that method will return the tweet counter. Okay, cool. So we got the new method, we got this, looks good. Now let's go back to our program and start actually axing some code, right? So let's go to the enter your tweet. I don't need any of this anymore, okay? I need to just call the post tweet method here. And how about this? Okay, this loop will also call that method, right? So let's go back here. I no longer need to maintain these things in my class. I can just focus my class to be just the UI, the user experience. So let's go ahead and create a new instance of the tweet manager. I'm gonna call it tweet manager, literally TM equal new tweet manager, just like we did with the string, right? So now I have an instance of that class. I can start working with this. I have a class of this instance. It holds up to 10 tweets, and I can start using it. How about that? So if someone, let's start with, we start getting errors, that's good because we're going to replace those. So let's start with a post. I asked the user for the tweet. I got the tweet back, and I literally, all I have to do is tm.post tweet, and we're not seeing that for some reason. That is really weird. Okay, the reason is if you don't specify that the class, the method, that these methods that you have written, by default they are invisible to the outside world. By outside world I mean classes, other classes like this one. So you have to specifically say public. This method is public. Okay, this method is also public. I want people to see this. This method is also public. That's how we do it, basically, right? So now if I do that, now again, I went back to this and I said tm dot, I can now see that post tweet. So if you ever see that problem, that means your class is not exposed to the outside world, okay? And I'll just take the tweet. But now this actually returns a result. Remember, it returns either an error or message, right? So I'm gonna just declare a string called message, right? And then I'll just take it blindly and write it back to the user. Message. Cool. We just did the post tweet part. Let's do the read. Tweet counter is no longer here because obviously we removed that variable from up there, right? So how can we get the tweet counter now? All from this proxy. We call this proxy and it will give us everything. So I want the tweet counter. There you go. There's your tweet counter right there. Okay. Since this is a method, we have to do little parentheses to actually call that method to get the tweet counter. Okay. And it is asking us for the actual tweets, right? So the tweets here is also the tm dot get tweets. And then since this is a method, I will do that. And since this is an array, I will follow it up with the subset of I. I can either do that or store the variable in an array and then use that I. So both of them should work. All right, guys, I think it's time to test our application. We moved everything to a class. It is really cool what we're gonna do next. Let's start the application and see if everything works now. I don't have anything, so I'm gonna do 2, post a new tweet, Hussein. All right, we posted a new tweet and we enter 2. Click 1 again. We are viewing the tweet post. Nasser, tweet 2. All right, view them again. And we are viewing them. Looks like it's good. All right, and then we 3 and we exit. All right, guys.
This has been an introduction to classes, and we will take this to the next level from there, right? Classes are very, very cool, right? Look how we trimmed the code to a very small, like, footprint. All right, guys, see you in the next lecture.
So far, we have stored tweets on the memory in RAM, right? We did not persist them per se in the disk. All right, so that's why we need to talk about the file system. The file system is where is the hard drive that if you buy a laptop or a computer, it comes with a hard drive, and this is where things get stored in them. You create a file, you store it in the disk, and you can safely close the machine, shut it down, and open it again, and the files will still be there. This is like called the persisted file systems. All right. However, in the RAM, things are loaded much faster. However, they do not persist in the RAM. The moment you close and you lose electricity, they're just flushed. You lose all the data. Okay, so hard disks are slower to access, but they persist your data, right? Versus RAM, they will essentially, you can store your data in memory, you can retrieve it very fast, but the moment you close your application or your process is closed, you lose your data. So that's the file system, and in this section we're going to use the file system to store data, our tweets essentially, into the disk, right? And we're going to retrieve them as well.
Hey guys, if you notice all the entire during these lectures so far, all the classes that we have wrote, all the code that we have written was not actually persisted anywhere, right? You would post all these tweets, you'll view them, but once the application closes, you'll lose all this work, all right? Because everything we were written so far was in arrays, and this tweet manager was nothing but a memory, right? Representation. So it might serve us well if actually we rename this to Tweet Manager Memory, because today we will actually create a new class which we call Tweet Manager File. Okay, let's go ahead and just rename everything there. All right, what we're gonna do is we'll create a new class to manage our tweets and view them from the disk, right? So we're gonna actually persist that. So even if you close the application and open it, you still can read your tweets. That's pretty cool. So let's get to it. So there are many ways to do that, all right? So we can just copy and paste that, all right, class, and then we're gonna rename it to, say, file, tweet manager file, and yeah, you want to call this file, right? And that should be it. Okay. All right. So now we have a tweet manager file and tweet manager memory. They look exactly the same. All right. But there are things that in this class that are shared with the other class. If you have noticed, right? Like this particular piece of code, right? We will introduce another tool in the coming classes and the coming lectures where we will inherit from classes and inherit certain code. But for now, let's just stick with that. So we're not gonna need an array and a counter in this case, because we're gonna persist things in the disk. But we do need a file name, right? Because we're gonna store this. A file name is literally a name of a file on disk, right? So I'm gonna call it tweets.txt, right? Post tweet, in this case, what it does is it takes the tweet, checks that is still valid, we still want that. This is no longer correct, right? Because we're getting an error. But if we rename this to get tweets, that should magically work, right? Because we're getting the tweets. All right, get that tweet, which is this method, right? We'll return tweets. So this is not correct yet. Tweet counter is also not correct, so we want to use the actual method, right, to return the tweet count. If teach want to cook that, that's also okay. We don't store in arrays anymore. What we do is actually store on file, and this is how to write to a new file. What we want to do first is to create, we call the method, which is called system.io input output file append all lines, because we're gonna add these tweets into as a new line into the disk. All right. So what this method takes is the path to the file, which is, guess what, file name, which we just created. By default, the file will be created in the same directory of the project. Okay, and we don't really care where the file is created as of now. Okay, and what it takes actually an array of content, and we all remember how to do an array, right? We can do new string, right? And we're gonna learn something new here, where if we follow the array of string with the curly braces, we can actually populate that array with at least one item if you do it this way. Okay, and I want to actually send the array, the tweet, as an array of one element. Okay, so what will end up happening is we're gonna append to this thing, create a file. If it doesn't exist, write the tweet and then close the file successfully. Okay, and then we're gonna return that thing. Sounds good? Sounds great. So for the tweet counter and get tweets, for now we will just fix them so we don't get errors. All right, and let's just do anything literally. I just want to make sure the application compiles without any errors, right? We're gonna fix them in the next lecture. We actually populate them with the real code that will actually retrieve those. Okay, but for now, what I want to do is actually test the application. How about that, guys? So all we have to do, go back to the program, and guess what? Tweet manager memory, we don't want to use that class anymore. I want to use the tweet manager file. And all we have to do is just rename this thing. And if we're lucky, everything just works because the methods, we did not change them, right? The application still treats this correctly. Let's go ahead and just post something, and let's call this is a new tweet. Hopefully it will be stored. Okay, and looks like something happened, right? Let's exit the application and let's look in the code, right? The path. So I'm gonna go to the path here. All right, let's go ahead and just go to the path, and we should see in the debug section a text file with, if we open that text file, and that's our tweet right there, guys. Okay, we can keep, if we keep tweeting that, if we keep tweeting in the application, we'll see them stored in this section. All right, guys, let's go to the next lecture where we actually read those tweets. How about that, guys? All right, guys, so we posted the tweet successfully to disk, and we have opened the file, and we see that this is actually persisted. Now it's time to actually read. How about that? Okay, so the first thing we need to do to get tweets, it's a really simple line of code, okay? So we need to use the same exact thing, right? We're gonna return system.io.file. Instead of append all lines, we're gonna do, guess what? Read all lines. That's correct. We're going to read all the lines. And which file is that? Correct, file name. And that will actually really nicely will actually return a string, an array of a string. So we don't need to do anything. Just returning that will solve our problem. Okay, back to the tweet count is the tricky part. Here, the tweet count, previously we managed it in memory, but I don't want to do that because the moment I close the application, I still don't know what's the current tweet count. So there is another method to do that, and you guys are very familiar with it. Okay, so if I do that, this is an array, correct? This is the array of list of all the tweets in the file. Since this is an array, I could actually find, which will give me the tweets, the number of tweets. How about that? All right. Now this is actually an expensive method to call, right? But no, we're not worried about performance right now. We can worry about another lecture or maybe another course, right? But think about this. What's happening here? We're reading in the entire file, counting all the lines, and then returning them. Okay. So we might want to think about a better approach to that, and that's why we basically that's all the software engineering all about. It's all about making compromises, thinking about this better solution solutions, okay? But now since we're still learning, it's okay to make unperformant code. We can always fix it later, all right? Just like we need to make sure just to understand that. All right, so just by populating this code, let's go back to the manager, the program, and then run that, okay? If I view, I can actually see the tweets that I put in the last lecture, right? If I posted a new tweet, this is another tweet. Hopefully it will be there when I come back. Okay. Max tweet reached. We got an error. That's really weird. So what is that error? All right. Let's take a look at the error. What is that error? Okay. We got a tweet counter is greater than the length of the tweets. Obviously, that is not correct, right? Because we did not specify the number of the maximum tweets, all right? So let's do that. Let's just put a maximum tweet, like max tweets equal 10, all right? And if the tweet counter is greater than or equal max tweet, or we could just put 10 here, really, all right? Then we should get an error. Let's try that now, guys. How about that? So if I do view all tweets, all right, let's write it. This is another tweet. Fully, it writes. Okay, posted successfully. That looks good. View. Now we get it back. You don't believe me? Let's close the application, open it again. Still there. That's what we're talking about. Okay. All right, looks good. So let's see if our application actually maintains the maximum number of, remember we put a check, if it's more than 140 character, we need to fail. It is failing correctly, so we're good. All right, guys, that was reading and writing tweets to desk. All right, let's move to the next lecture. We'll learn more and more cool stuff. All right, guys, we have two classes now, tweet manager file, tweet manager memory, but there are a lot of shared code between them. And this kind of belong to, if you think about it, another shared class between the two, right? We're going to create a new class right now. We're going to call it an abstract class. Abstract class in C# is a very common class where you put code that doesn't really belong in either of the classes or more classes. It's just shared between all the classes. And we're going to introduce the concept of inheritance, all right? Let's jump into it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create and add a new class. I'm going to call it literally just tweet manager. Okay, .cs. Tweet manager will be a public abstract class. Okay, an abstract class is a class that you cannot create an instance of. You have to always inherit from it. And it will also include methods that are also abstract. That means any class that inherits from this class must implement these methods. So what do we want to do here? If you go to the classes, we have post tweet, tweet counter, and get tweet, right? These are the three methods that we have, all right? So let's pull all of them up, okay? So we will have post tweet, string post tweet, which takes a tweet, obviously, all right? And we have, this is public. And then we have get string, returns a string, get tweets, right? And then we have public integer, tweet counter. That's right. That's what we called it. For these two, I'm gonna follow it up with abstract. That means that actually the class that inherits from this class must implement these methods, right? You can't put shared code in this thing, okay? And I'm gonna add another abstract method. I'm gonna call it returns a string, and I'm gonna call it write tweet, and you're gonna find out in a minute why I did that, okay? So now post tweet, if you think about it, this is a shared code between these two, right?
always there. So I'm gonna cut this code and then paste it here. Okay. Tweet.length, obviously we have this tweet that we just received. All right. Okay. And what we have is we don't have the max tweet, so we have to add it, right? So let's add an integer max tweets equal, let's say 10, right? And we'll just have it here. Okay. And that post tweet, in this case, I will return write tweet and then pass in the tweet here. What will happen if someone calls post tweet, we always go to the parent manager, which is this class. We check these conditions and then we call write tweet, because write tweet is the method which all of these classes must implement. So let's go to the tweet file manager and start doing this work. We no longer need this because we're going to inherit from our class, right? And post tweet, if you think about it, we're going to rename it to write tweet instead, okay? And here we will inherit from the tweet manager, okay? And this particular method, we will start overriding, all right, the parent method, which is the write tweet, okay? Same thing with the tweet counter. We're gonna override it. We're gonna override it. And just like that, we have finished the first class. And we start, it's much cleaner right now, right guys? So what will happen here is if I go to the memory, I wanna do the same thing here, okay? Inherit from the tweet manager. Okay, this is how we do inheritance, by the way, colon. And post the tweet is now known as write tweet. I no longer need this code because it's up there, right? I'm gonna call that method. And this is obviously, we're gonna override, and finally override. And just like that, we are much cleaner right now. I am much more comfortable with this code right now. And you'll know that as you start developing and writing code, you'll start using these methods and inheritance, the power of inheritance, to do all this code. Now, if you have a new check you want to add to the tweet, let's say instead of the length, you want to check for swear words or bad words, you can add it here instead of adding it here and here. These classes are the worker classes. They just do work. Okay, let's see if actually we didn't break anything, hopefully. If I do that now, run the code, view the tweets. Nice, we are reading from this. This is the disk tweet, right? So this is another tweet stored in disk. Okay, we enter 2, view them, and then 1, 2, 3, looks good. All right, look at that, guys. Now if I go back to my program, which is the main code, I'm not gonna change anything here. I'm gonna just change a single line of code and see the magic. I'm gonna change this from file to memory. And voila, code just runs like butter. View, I don't have any tweets because everything in memory, right? So 2, I'm gonna write that this will be erased. Right? View, this will be erased. The moment I close and open again, and I say view all tweets, I got nothing because I started using the in-memory tweet. And think about all the classes that you can write now. The HTTP tweet manager, or the connection tweet manager, or database tweet manager, or anything really. You can start building out this thing. Next up, we're gonna start implementing the searching of all these classes, all right? And see how cool is this, guys. All right, see you in the next one. In this lecture, we will introduce searching. So the concept of search is we will write something like, say, search for all tweets that has this particular hashtag or this term, okay? And if you think about it, we will get back an array of tweets, right? So what we want to do here is I'm going to do a slightly something different just to show you the broad terms and tools that are in C++, and you can choose for yourself, okay? I'm going to introduce a new tool here
All right, so it's just another method, but this particular method will return a list instead, a list of string instead of an array. It's slightly a better structure to use. Like, let's go to call this search, and then it takes a search term. Okay, let's just takes consistent search term. All right, so what this does do is you can declare a list of string, and let's call this results, and then you can do a new list of string. That will be an array of strings essentially, but it's a slightly better to use and easier to use than a physical array. Physical array, you have to specify a size and you have to worry about a counter and all that stuff. With this list, you don't have to do that. It just like tells you all that stuff. Okay, so all we have to do is now we have obviously still have to loop through our array, correct? So our array will be I is less than tweet counter, remember that? Okay, maybe at one point we're going to replace all that with lists, right? Just to show you the different capabilities of things that we can do here. If the the get tweets, the ith element of tweet dot, you can do dot contains it's not helping. Okay, if the get tweets, right, the ith element dot contains, if it contains the search term, then we are good. I want that tweet. Okay, so all we have to do, if we satisfy that results, we will take results and literally add that tweet to the results. Sounds good? And then just like that, once before I'm done, I want to return the results. Cool. If you notice, I have written this function not in the file manager, not in the memory. I actually written it in the abstract class, and that's the beauty of inheritance. One place to write this stuff, and I can use it in both classes. Okay, so let's see if our stuff is working. But we need to add another option here, console.writeLine. If you press 3, then I'm gonna search. Okay, let's make 4 that exits instead. Obviously 4 will exit, and then I'm gonna do if choice. We can steal it from this, right, because it's kind of similar. It's asking the user. If it's 3, enter search term. Okay, this is the search term, and instead of tm.post, I'm gonna do tm.search, and that will be the search results. That will return a list of string results. All right, and all we have to do is, for simplicity, let's just do write line found results dot length dot count. Right, so that's how you do so it's in an array, the number of elements are called length. In a list, it's called count. Okay, tweets. Okay, just we'll deal with looping through them in another video, hopefully. So hopefully, and run that. Let's view all this stuff. Let's switch to file. I think we are in memory. Yeah, let's switch to file. Okay, if I switch to file, then run that thing, and then view. Nice. Okay, let's search. Enter search term. I want to search anything that has the word another. And we found 2 tweets, right? 1 and 2. Looks good, guys. And for exit. All right, guys, that was the power of inheritance and searching. All right, obviously the search is not optimum. This particular search is not optimized. This is it's a very slow search. But since we're learning, it's okay. Ideally, you want the database to do the search for you. If you push this code into the database to do the actual search and all kind of different searches. All right, guys. that was it. Let's move to the next lecture with more cool stuff.
So why do we need a DLL, dynamic link library? As you start writing code, more code into the class, your class get larger and larger, okay? And you will find yourself creating different projects, correct? You'll create a different project, your friends will create different projects, and they will eventually need the same code that you're actually writing. Okay, so how do you share code between you guys? You can obviously copy and paste code, that works, right? But that's not scalable, because if you make a change, how do you transfer that change to your friend, right? Or even to you, to your projects, right? So that's why a library is very important. You will create your code, and we're going to explain that in this section, where we have written a lot of code. We want to move it to a centralized library where we can reference and pick classes that we can reuse off this library. So DLL, it's all over the place. If you're using Windows, you have definitely seen a DLL file left and right? These are nothing but code that people have written and shared in order to reuse things like draw this on the map, or draw this on the screen, write this to this. Everything almost is a DLL file with Windows. All right, guys.
Hey guys, so we have almost like a complete application right now, but I want to take care of these three classes. They kind of don't belong in this project if you think about it. This tweet manager belongs to its own project, and this project is called a library. Okay, that's what we will introduce in this lecture, the dynamic link library. It's a collection of classes that you can put them in its own DLL file. Yeah, I'm sure you've seen those lying around, and you can call them and reference them in your project and use them again and over again. So let's do that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is right click and then add. Instead of doing a class, we're going to do a new project. Okay, and it fits very nicely to call this Twitter manager, right? Or tweet manager. All right, let's call this tweet manager. I'm going to select class library this time. Okay, and let's add that empty library. Okay, all right, so you want to go ahead and just delete that file. We don't really need it, because instead we're going to use these three guys. All right, so let's just go and copy all these guys. You can either copy them or just drag and drop really to the tweet manager. Okay, now that I copied them there, I can safely delete them from the console application, because console application is just a user interface stuff, right? It's going to use eventually that. So the tweet manager, okay, the namespace, which is this global collection of, think of them as a library, it's called Twitter console. We don't want it to call that, right? It's just inherited the name of the project that was the previous project. So let's call it Twitter manager. Okay, and then we call this also Twitter manager, all Twitter manager. Okay, so tweet manager, let's be consistent. Tweet manager. Okay, tweet manager, and tweet manager. Why not? Okay, cool. So now we have all the classes good, ready. Let's go ahead and compile that. We shouldn't get any error because we didn't do anything different, right? So now if I go to this project, I'm gonna get all sort of errors, right? Because we no longer have a tweet manager file class in this project, so it doesn't see it. But if you expand references here and you right click on this thing, add reference, you go to projects, and then you can actually select that project, which is tweet manager project, as a reference to this. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, and then if I compile, if you notice, I'm gonna still get an error, and the reason is it says I couldn't find the namespace file. This says tweet manager, and the reason is because we have to do using tweet manager namespace. We need to import that namespace. Okay, if you notice that we still get an error, and this error is different now. Tweet manager file is accessible due to protection level. Why is that? The tweet manager is public. The tweet file is not set as public, it's set as private, right? So let's just go ahead and make it public so other classes can see it. Let's do that the same like with the memory one. Now go ahead and build that. Go back to the console. Then if I build this thing, I shouldn't get any error. That's right. Now we have a very tiny application that uses a library that we have built. Can you imagine? This is pretty cool, guys. Let's go ahead and run this. Make sure view works. Search, let's search for rights. Rights, we have, yeah, we didn't find anything that says rights for some reason. All right, let's search. Oh, we did post, I think. All right. View. We have 4 views. Let's search for rights. Okay, we found 2 tweets that has rights in them. All right, looks good, guys. I think we are in good shape to move to do more cool stuff, some better user experience. We have a manager, we have a library, we have all that kind of code we can just reference and use very freely. See you in the next lecture. All right, guys, time to add a brand new interface, right? We're gonna work with a brand new user interface, which is called the Windows Forms. It's actually more user friendly than the console that I've been working with. All right, so to do that, let's go ahead and right-click on your solution, point to add, and then click New Project. And we're gonna call this, guess what? Twitter-form. Okay, and what we're gonna pick is make sure to pick Windows Forms, C#, Twitter-form, and then just click OK. And while you're creating this, you'll end up with a nice form like that. Okay, what we want to do next is we want to make the form our primary startup application. So you can do right-click on the Twitter form, and then you do set up as startup project. This way, if I run start, instead of starting the console, I'm gonna start the form. Okay, obviously the form doesn't have anything, but it's time to add little design. How about that, guys? Let's give it a name first. I'm gonna call this Twitter, just Twitter, right? For naming a file, go ahead, looks good. So the first thing I want to do, I'm gonna click on the form and then give it a nice name here. Form 1, let's call this Twitter application. Cool. And we can resize, you can do all these kind of things. Like all of this now, guys, is like, it's a very straightforward thing. You can work with this. And the major thing here is the toolbox. It's pretty cool to have a toolbox. So the first tool I'm gonna grab is, I'm gonna call it the group box. The group box is pretty cool. Right, let's call it. There you go. The group box is like it's like a design choice. You can pick that and give it a name. It's just like grouping your controls together. So I'm gonna call this like tweets. Okay, and then I will pick another tool called list box and then drop it right there. Okay, and these are all, this will be all our tweets. I want to give my list box, by the way, if you notice, as I drop objects, as I drop controls, they automatically get a name. List box 1, group box 1. You can go and change the names, give them like a better name. I like to, like if it's a list, I like to start with LST, indicating that's a list, and then the name of the control, like tweets, okay, list tweets. Okay, makes sense? Now what I want to do is, this is where all our tweets will go. Will go here, correct? And what I want to do is, I want to add a text box. A text box where we can write new tweets. How about that? So this will be my tweet. And then I'll add, let's give it a name. Text box 1 is not very intuitive, is it? So I'm gonna give it txt, indicating it's a text, and then tweet. Okay. And finally, I want to add a button. Let's add a button. And that button is the command, which gonna go btn post. This is where we post the tweet. Obviously, we need to give it a nicer text instead of button 1. Let's call it post. Cool, guys? Looks good. All right. I think I'm gonna stop here. Just like play with the application, guys, and feel familiar with the Twitter form and make sure it runs. There's no error. In the next lecture, we'll actually write some code to pull the existing tweets and write new tweet and post with them. All right, guys. See you in the next lecture. All right, guys, we have designed our application, the Twitter interface, another type of interface which is called the forums. Now we need to write some code, but we're missing something. Remember, guys, we have written the library where we have all the Twitter manager code, right? So we need to reference that. And do you remember how to do that? Correct. In the Twitter form, right-click on the references, add reference, and just like that, select Tweet Manager, and then add that. And if we do that, if we go to the code of this, you can either go to build project view code, right? Or you can just double click here. Okay, if you double click, you'll end up with this, right? With the code that we're all familiar with. We need obviously to reference the tweet manager. Okay, once we reference the tweet manager, the first thing I want to do is, if you notice, there's called a method called Twitter load. And what it does is it will execute the first time you load the application, okay? We don't have any code to put there. So what we're going to do instead is go up here and then let's declare a Twitter manager memory, okay? Tweet manager memory. Let's call it tm equal new tweet manager memory. Okay, so we'll start with the memory. And then what we're going to do is we need to write a new tweet. How about that? Let's start with that. Okay, to write a new tweet, go back, double click on the form here. You'll end up with the design, and then double click on the post to start writing code when someone clicks on that post button. All right, so what I want to do is if someone clicks on that post button, I want to get tm.post tweet. All right, literally just to take that. And what is the tweet here? It's nothing but text tweet object.text. All right, remember, if you remember, post tweet will actually return something for you, right? So that's the message back. What do we want to do with the message, right? We can do many things. Okay, we can have another label here, which we didn't do before. That's actually a good idea to add it right there. Let's add a label indicating the status of things here, and I'm gonna call it literally that. Okay, right, I'm gonna call it label status, LBL status. Okay, and if I post that, what I want to do is label status dot text is equal message. Cool. This way, every time we post, we will get the result of the post displayed in our label. Okay, let's test our application. All right, this is a new test. Tweet post. Tweeted successfully. Let's write something more than 140 characters. Ah, we got the error back. That is actually cool. How about that, guys? All right, so this is how we post a new tweet. We got the message correctly. Looks like it's good. So we need to actually read those stuff and show them to the in the list box, right? And to do that, I like to use methods wherever possible. Okay, so I'm gonna create a new method that returns nothing. all right, and says refresh tweets. Okay, what it does, it actually go ask the Twitter manager to get all the tweets. All right, so let's store them in string. Let's call them tweets. And then we will do a nice loop. Integer I equals 0 while I is less than tweets dot. Let's also put a Twitter counter. All right, tweets count. Tweets count equal tm dot get Twitter counter. Right, just give me that number, and then loop until that I plus plus. This approach is better, guys, because this way we store the variable once, and then instead of calling the method multiple times, we just store the variable once and then use it over and over again. So what we're going to do is list tweets dot items dot add. That's how we add a new item to that list of tweets that we created. Remember, guys, right? That is called list tweets. And then we will basically do tweets sub I, right? Just loop through all of them, add all of them, okay? Obviously, we created a method, but we never called it, but we just make sure that we didn't break anything. So after every single post, I want to refresh the tweets, okay? Post, show the message, refresh. Let's go ahead and run. Tweet 1, pushed, nice. Tweet 2, tweet 3. Have you noticed what's going on? We're all the time we're adding the tweets. Although we add 4 tweets, we end up with, I don't know, a lot. Okay? So the problem here is we're not clearing the list every time we're adding a new tweet. To do that, really simple. All we have to do is do list tweets before we refresh dot items dot clear everything. Let's test this now. Test 1, test 2, test 3, test 4. Looks good, much better. All right. Remember, we have at one point we reached the maximum number of tweets. There you go. We can only send 10 tweets. All right. All right. One more thing. We have been using the memory tweet manager, right? Let's switch to the file tweet manager, right? Let's see how this will work, right? If I switch to the file tweet manager, okay, and I run this, okay, I don't get anything. Looks like there are no tweets. Let's add 1, tweet 1, and the moment I do that, I'm getting an error. Wonder why. Okay, so what we're getting here, it says it's searching for the tweets.txt file, but it couldn't find it. Okay, so we need to augment our application to capture all these things, right? In case if a file doesn't exist and all these real life scenarios, right? So let's get to it. So this was a tweet manager file. We're trying to read the tweet counter and we're reading the file, but obviously there is no file. So what we want to do here, we're going to do like a small if statement, right? If system.io.file, there's a method called exists, right? And if we give this method, if the file exists, do that, okay? Else, if it doesn't exist, well, just assume there are no tweets. Sounds fair, right? Same thing with here, I think. I think I'm going to do the same thing exactly here, okay? If the file exists, do that. Else, return, I guess, new string with, let's say, yeah, 0 elements, like it's an empty array. Let's start our application right now. And let's tweet something. That works this time, right? Let's type, this is my second tweet. Post looks good. If I close and reopen, this better be coming back, right? Oh, we're not getting anything back. That's weird. Well, let's start right again. Are we still using the Twitter manager? Okay, I'll start. This is a test. Post. Oh, we got them back, right? What we have noticed is when we start the application, we are not actually loading that forms, correct? We're not loading the tweets when we start the application. So how do we do that? On Twitter load, which is the form load, all we have to do is just call in this application. That should do the trick. Look at that. It's beautiful. Okay. Looks good. All right, guys. I think I'm gonna stop here. This is a natural stop for us. We have switched to a completely different application, right? Completely different UI. We use the different classes, like the file manager or the tweet manager. Like there are a lot of things that we can do to improve this application even more. I'm gonna maybe add them in as bonus lectures to this course. All right, you guys stay awesome. Thank you so much for checking out this course. And if you have any questions, let me know. See you on the next one. Goodbye.